What is up, all you gurglers, all you growlers of the internet? Mark with Kardavox Academy here, and today we're doing the most recent one take. Well, we're analyzing the most recent one take by Will Ramos of Lorna Shore, and I return to Nothingness. Now, these have been popping off a lot lately, and they're fun. They're fun not only because they're good. I think we can all agree that Will Ramos is a pretty damn good vocalist, but they're really good educational material as well. There's a lot to be talked about with breath support, resonance placement, the generation of distortion, the overall ease he has in creating these tones. Now, before we get into that, again, my name is Mark. I am the vocalist in 3 bands, although right now Kardashev is the only one going. Kardashev is the main gig, and then I was in Never Breath and Viremia as well. And I'm a vocal coach, specifically focusing on teaching people how to make all these gurgly, gross, disgusting types of sounds. And what I do here on the channel is I take the reaction format, I break it down, I try to make it educational, and I talk about what the vocalists here are doing to create these tones, what they're doing right, what they're doing well. And sometimes if I'm a little stumped, it happens. I'll give you my best guess. Now, a couple things. If you like the content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Means a lot. Helps the channel grow, and it always lets me know that we're doing something good. We're hitting the right strings, so to speak. And if you really love the content, be sure to check us out on Patreon. We've got monthly events for vocalists. We've got a karaoke day. We've got a like a discussion group day, which we're thinking about just turning into a second karaoke because karaoke is a little bit more poppin' anyway. Every Friday night we have a listening party for everyone. That's a lot of fun, and it's a great time. It's a lot of fun. Now, last thing I want to talk about here is if you've watched this channel before. Right? If you've watched this channel before, you know that I don't wear shirts with graphics on them. I never do. It's just not, I feel like it looks weird with my face. I don't know why, but I'm wearing one today because it says Metal Dad. That's right. A really cool guy on Instagram. His name is Kyle something. I'll link it below. He sells Metal Dad branded merchandise, and I never had a reason to buy it before, but I do now because that's right. At the end of September, beginning of October, there will be a little mini Kardavox that will very likely make an appearance on a lot of videos because I'm basically going to do this and be a stay-at-home dad kind of at the same time. So we will absolutely have reaction videos where I'm like burping a little baby and screaming. He's going to have to get used to it, right? It's a little baby boy. I'm very excited, and I thought I'd wear this Metal Dad shirt to celebrate. He didn't ask me to buy it. He didn't send it to me, but they're cool shirts. Lots of cool designs. Not sponsored, but if you're a metal dad and you want people to know you're a metal dad, go check out the shirts. But anyway, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead. Let's get into And I Return to Nothingness, Lorna Shore, one take playthrough by Will Ramos. Let's go.
From the earth we have risen. And the limits will face the undeniable truth from their life. Return to the addiction of lies and the rigid state of my enemy is born again. From the motivation.
All right, we're gonna pause it there. So again, we focus on the education here, so there's gonna be some pausing. Already there are a couple things I want to talk about. First and foremost, the main thing, and I pointed this out in the other videos. If you haven't watched them, you should go check them out. But the main thing I'm seeing here is just like awesome, impeccable breath support. Notice how relaxed he looks. One thing that I really focus on with a lot of my students is being able to do these vocals in as relaxed a state as possible, right? So when we're creating tones, now Will and I obviously make our vocals very differently, so I'm not gonna sound exactly like him, of course. But when we make these vocals, we should be able to be very relaxed. Now, you are totally capable of this, right? But when I do this, when I make these tones, it's like this. You can see that I'm not puffing up into my chest. That's very common, obvious knowledge. But I'm also not, struggling under the weight of that scream. And it's because I've learned to do it both quiet and relaxed and projected and engaged, right? This is very important. I also am really liking the way he's messing with his vowels. You know, I feel like if there was like a Super Smash Bros. Deathcore vocalist version of the game, Will Ramos, like, you know, he's got his little character. And of course, you know, they're always like doing the bounce, right? They're always doing the bounce. And it would be like, you know, maxed out on breath support and maxed out on like articulation. Now, some people may disagree with me on the articulation because it's hard to understand deathcore lyrics most of the time. And that's the case here. I didn't understand everything he did or he said. If you know me, you know that I don't really care. I think articulation in the context of death metal and deathcore is only as important as you really want it to be. That's just my take. That's my take. If you think we should understand every single word, then train to be that kind of vocalist. But, and you know, he's very articulate in that way as well. But for me, it's a lot of the creativity, right? At the beginning, I think he said we return to the earth or something like that. He didn't just say we, he said like way. And a lot of his vowels, he says ow, 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 right? Combining that tongue, creating the resonance chamber for that tunnel sound. Oh, closing the lips around the word. It's also how he's able to slide up into a lot of highs that are very comfortable. Excellent breath support. Let's keep going though. We'll go more in depth in a little bit. Yeah, like right there. I think he said just for a moment, but he said just for a moment. Da-da, moment, right? That's really cool. I like that. We're going to go back. Sorry, Ludo. Ludo's my editor. I always feel bad when I do quick jumps around because he's got to line up the audio. Appreciate you, buddy. Ooh. Much love. So this is a really excellent, what we're hearing here is a really excellent example of how much work we can do just with our mouth, the back of the mouth, which is the pharyngeal space, right? One thing I talk a lot with my students about as well is utilizing resonance over pressure to get the effects that we want, right? Oftentimes, and I see this kind of across the overall deathcore vocal community, which by the way, when I say stuff like this, please don't let it come across as I'm like one of those, like, okay, we all know who I'm talking about. When someone gets on YouTube and they have a skill and they act like nobody else knows the skill but them, that is not what I'm trying to do here. I've seen a lot of wonderful and excellent advice in the deathcore community, across the internet, lots of great stuff. One thing that I noticed that I feel could be articulated a little bit better or perhaps differently is that a lot of times we break a lot of things into separate techniques, and that can cause some confusion, right? Because a lot of times when people are like, oh man, I love these 4 different techniques, it's just different vowel positions. It's different vowel positions and the same distortion underneath, right? So for example, if I take like, just kind of like an open mid, right? Like a, right? Just like a mid, and I close around, I open up, I curl my tongue, right? I'm not really doing a whole lot of like techniques per se. I'm just keeping this steady. This is where the breath support comes in. I'm keeping this steady underneath and doing different things with my mouth. Now, here's the thing. When we make different mouth shapes, we get slightly varying pressure, slightly varying air pressure in our mouth. So if you want to practice this sort of thing, honestly, just like going through syllables is really valuable, right? You can get these charts. I actually did this early on when I was trying to get a little bit better, which is going through different vowels. You can get these charts for people who are trying to learn Japanese. I don't know Japanese. I just saw it and thought it would be valuable, where it just has each syllable in the, I'm also not an expert on Japanese, so if there's a word for this, please tell me in the comments below. But you could just, you know, go through the syllables. Ba, da, ka, ta, you know, whatever. It's been a long time. But that's a really good way to do it. So you can get used to the air pressure that can build up like behind a plosive, right? A plosive being any sound where we go like p, t, k. There's a buildup of air that's then released, right? We can call that a plosive. There's also voiced plosives, right? So there's a lot of different stuff. And he does that very well. Again, maxed out on breath support, maxed out on articulation. I want to talk about high vocals as well, but I actually have a lesson in 30 minutes. So I got to be a little bit more concise with this one than I was in previous videos. So I'm going to let a little bit more of the song play. Then I want to talk about high vocals because I'm hearing, you know, what's interesting in some of the other songs, I heard what sounded like combinations of false quarter fry. I heard more like heavy arytenoidal sounds. To me, right, this is sounding super, super, super fry heavy. Now, truth be told, sometimes these sounds can be very similar when they're like boiled down and really controlled, but that's what I'm hearing here. Let's keep going. Yeah. Oh! That was really cool. We got to talk about that. So one thing we talk about a lot in vocals, like clean singing, metal vocals, distortion, all this, is how important it is to have a wide open space. And that is true. Now, once you have good control over your voice, once you understand the balance of pressure, right? And when I say pressure, like I'm talking so little that you almost can't feel it. We really don't want to build up tons and tons of pressure underneath the vocal folds, right? Now, there are some exercises out there that do that, right? And they do yield results. However, if you can avoid having a constant push underneath your vocal folds and still get really cool results, why not do that? That's my whole philosophy. Like why do it harder when you could do it easier? That's just my opinion. Now, with that being said, we can also go into a more closed space. So up until now, Will has been using a lot of really open spaces, right? His embouchure has often been very, very open. Now, sometimes this can get confusing because like if we look here, we would think that my mouth is very closed. But in actuality, my soft palate is pulled up, my tongue is arched back. So even though the opening of my mouth is very small, right? My French teacher used to call it un cul de poule, chicken's asshole. That's how she taught us to do it. She's like, make a chicken's asshole. And, you know, I did well, I guess. But, you know, when I do this, if everything is like small and collapsed inside, right? So we can still have a lot of resonant space. However, we can also close things up, and the result will kind of sound like this. So if I'm very like open, if I'm very closed, right? And we get a lot of these cool sounds here. Let me go back because I want you to hear it. It's the first time this tone comes in this song. It's really cool. I'll click right in the center of this little flower on his super cool microphone. I gotta bling my microphone up. Look at this boring stock microphone. I gotta put something cool on there. Maybe like get a Kardavox Academy skin. That'd be cool. Oh. I want to talk about some of that stuff there. So first of all, those highs were awesome. I do my highs very, very, very differently. But not to say that the way that I do them better, I'm just prepping you for the fact that I'm going to sound a little bit different, because sometimes when I do reactions to vocalists that are a little bit more popping in the culture, people will be like, "You didn't sound exactly like him. I don't understand how anatomy works," right? And so essentially, I always just prep people like, "Yo, it's gonna sound different. Work through it." But essentially, what I love about him is oftentimes when we do vocals, and a lot of the way that I do vocals is I aim all my resonance up here. However, with Will, especially here, I feel like his vocals are a little bit more forward in this one take than the previous ones. I'm probably crazy, but that's kind of what it just feels like right now. I'm also hearing his voice like aimed up, kind of leaving the top of his head, right? And that sort of resonance placement can be very helpful for when we're singing, when we're doing clean singing, right? And when we create these tones, we get like a lot of when we aim our voice in this way, we get a lot of really cool sounds, and we can actually bring the high a little bit down so it sounds closer to a mid. I'll show you what I mean. It's like, very nasal, very forward. Right, that's a very nasal one. If I kind of aim more upward, I'm thinking about that lifting up, right? Now, the way that I'm doing that is I'm raising the soft palate, right? And I'm actually thinking kind of downward, right? One thing I do a lot with my vocals, especially in the studio, is I will like kind of squat, or I'll like do a little mini stomp, like I think it was Celine Dion, like the little mini stomp, just to kind of think of myself as being kind of grounded in. And when I do this, I'm getting abdominal engagement pretty much all the way around. Like if you imagine like a wrestling belt, like a WWE wrestling belt, I'm getting all of that, and I'm getting some downward pelvic floor pressure as well. Melissa Cross called this the dump. Most people my age will remember that. Some of the younger vocalists may not, or maybe you do. I don't know. But anyways, the fact that his resonance is kind of balanced going upward. Yeah, that thought, that aiming of up out of the top of the head is really pretty cool. And I had something else I was going to mention, but I don't remember what it was. Oh, right. So also with a lot of these sounds, we're not using a lot of air, right? And let's think about that. So if we just blast air, we all know, right? I feel like 90% of the people who will watch this video will know, again, from just being part of the conversations around the deathcore vocal community, they'll have the understanding that we don't want to just blast a bunch of air through our vocal system, right? The vocal where you do this the most would be like your old school, like false chord, like the basic, like like that. But even there, we're moving air through the system, but we're not dumping it. You don't want to dump it out. You don't need to do that, right? And this air, not only is it important because it keeps your vocal system safe and healthy, two, it creates a tighter distortion. Now, this example I'm going to give you is a bit of a stretch in some ways. It's a bit of a reach, but it's okay. It's just for the sake of our understanding. This is reach, I suppose. It's okay for our understanding. If I take my voice, right, and I'm trying to sing something, I don't know, hey, yo, way, hey, yeah, right? I want my vocal folds, if I'm going for a full voice, like that connected tone, right? I want my vocal folds to be undulating, to be oscillating, to be vibrating. How many synonyms can I come up with? At a very steady and even pace, right? I want it to be very even. I want nice connection of the vocal of the vocal ligaments. I don't want them to be going crazy. Now, what's going to happen? Let's do like a little Dora the Explorer type quiz. You answer it to yourself, and then we'll see what's going to happen if I just blast air past my vocal folds. Well, they'll dry out, of course. That always comes with a bit of a risk of vocal damage. But beyond that, they're not going to quite vibrate the same way, right? They're not going to vibrate the same way. So if I do that again, hey, yay, sounds like shit, right? Because I'm just blasting air past my voice, and the vocal folds, they're blasting open, they're not connecting properly. Now, if we are doing a false chord vocal, or we are doing a vocal where we're heavily building on our arytenoids, or we're doing like a pure fry tone where we are keeping the vocal folds together. They're just vibrating in a different capacity. They're doing the vocal fry tone, but on the very edge of the ligaments, right? The same property basically still applies. Blast air, you're not going to get as even a connection, or I shouldn't say connection. I'm sorry. I should say activation. That's a better word if we're talking broadly. But we're not going to get as steady of an activation because, you know, the relationship between what's shaking and the thing that's making it shake is unbalanced, right? So regardless of what vocal you're doing, blasting air is probably not the best idea. Now, you may be out there and thinking to yourself, well, Mark, I've been blasting air through my throat for 10 years and my vocals sound really good. Imagine how many things you could do if you didn't have to blast the air past your vocal anatomy. Imagine the extra nuance you could add to your voice if you could do things super loud and powerful, but also super quiet and reserved. Something to think about. Let's keep going. All right, we'll pause at the guitar solo. So one thing I just want to mention real quick is, well, I want to talk about two things, and I'll keep them very brief again for the sake of time. The first is that if you're trying to do these super buttery, super smooth yet super powerful fry tones or fry influence tones for when we kind of combine things. One thing to understand is that fry is a really long road for most people, not for everybody, but for most people. And the reason for this is the vocal folds are going to be acting in a way that they don't normally, right? Like I said, we're getting that basically fry activation along the very edge of the vocal folds in a higher placement in our voice, and that requires our vocal muscles to be kind of strong, to have trained to do that. So one of the best things you can do, right, for this, and anybody who knows me knows that in most of my music, and until I started doing Kardavox Academy, I pretty much just exclusively did false chord or like the more arytenoidal like type of stuff. So, and I still probably don't use a whole lot of fry myself. It sounds dope. It's just not like if I was in the Super Smash Bros. Melee, it'd be like false chord, like maxed out, fry, less so. I should take a month off and just train my own fry. That'd be dope. I help a lot of other people do it. I should do it for myself. But anyway, start off with just this sound. Oh, that's it. Nothing fancy. And just do that every day. Right? Do that every day. That's really simple. That's really simple. And that's kind of how it works with learning any vocal, right? If we're trying to learn like the old school false chord, start off with this. Hey, hey, hey. And just do that a little bit every day. If you're trying to make more of like the more compressed, like types of sounds, don't start there, right? Don't start there. If you want to do like the sort of like hardcore Kublai Khan knocked loose belt, learn to control your clean voice first, right? Take these things slow. You don't have to. And there are people who learn it really fast, but chances are that's not you, right? You can learn it. Anybody can get here, but not all of us. I mean, I wasn't this way, right? It took me like 3 years to get to where I would say I sounded good, and 2 years to get to the point where I always 100% knew what sound was going to come out of my head, right? And part of that is because part of the reason it took so long is I wasn't practicing regularly. And then finally, when we are transitioning from a low to a high, because there's so much of that, he's just bouncing back and forth, low, high, ba, 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 right? The main thing that's going to help with that is relaxation, right? And having strength in each area. Sometimes it can be a little dicey to equate you know, low vocal to chest voice, mid to mixed voice, high to falsetto. Sometimes that can be a little bit tricky. I've seen different takes on it, and I don't know. I have, oh, my desk is raising. What the heck? I have thoughts on this, and maybe that's its own whole video. If for you, putting your false chords in the same space as one of your vocal registers works, so mote it be. However, I don't know. I'm going to go on off a rant. My point is this. Make sure you have a strong low, mid, and high, and make sure you understand your singing voice at least a little bit, right? At least enough to where you could go do a karaoke and people would at least, you know, be like, good job, man. You know, maybe they're not going to be like, holy crap, but they'll say like, hey, good job. You were mostly on pitch, right? You mostly weren't running out of breath, right? And then what we do is we take this. So here's like a low, and I'm gonna keep things pretty open, and then I'll compress a little bit, right? So here's like our low. Here's a mid. Same technique, just a different mouth shape. Here's a high. Now, as you get better at that, and you start to do more advanced, more like modern sounds. Right? It's a lot of relaxation. It's a lot of relaxation, not forcing your voice over that, but keeping your voice steady. Now, anyways, I'm going to avoid that rant because I got 15 minutes. Let's keep going. Nice.
And there you guys have it. I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you guys listen to the next one.
Cool. Okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe he's got some announcements. Maybe he's got a plug. Let's let him plug. Maybe he's going to say something cool.
But I hope you guys enjoyed the EP, and we got a whole LP coming soon. So if you like what you're hearing, get ready. Keep listening to Lord Shore.
Cool. Awesome. So there's a whole lot to talk about, but like I said, I got to prep. Actually, it's what I'm doing is not a lesson. It's our Patreon. It's our Patreon winner. We have every so often we basically take somebody from the community who's like been participating in a lot of the events, and they get a chance to win an evaluation with me, which is pretty cool. So the last thing I'm going to say, the last thing I'll mention before I let y'all go here. Also, he mentioned a full EP or an LP. That's awesome. Anyway. The last thing I'm going to mention to you is how long he held that section at the end, right? I think it's pretty important to be able to hold your voice for about 12 to 15 seconds. Past that is awesome. 12 to 15 seconds is pretty important. That's going to get you through most phrases that you need to get through in any song. Now, it's okay if not every vocal can. Like, because let's be real, like the old school, like false chord sound, you're getting maybe like 4 to 6 seconds out of that just by nature of what it is, right? However, when we get to sounds that involve a little bit more resistance to airflow, right? We can hold things out longer. One of my favorite exercises for doing this basically involves taking a breath in on a count, singing a note on a count, and then releasing the air on that count. There's a lot more to it than that, but like, right? An example, like let's say 4 beats, right? Like let's say I breathe in, ready, set. Done, right? You want to breathe in nice and steady, getting to about 70% full. Hold your note, clean note, even if you're a metal screamer, even if you're never going to sing a note recorded in your life, use a clean note, then release. Then if 4 is easy, this is not my exercise, by the way. I didn't make this up. This has been around for a while. When 4 is easy, bump it to 8, then 10, then 12, so on and so forth. And see how well you can hold your voice over a period of time. Do that a little bit every day. But again, be aware if you're going to put you can put a metal vocal in that middle section, right? But if you're going to do that, be a little bit realistic. Like if you want to do like the open false chord, past 8 beats, don't worry about it. If you're going to do like the very bare bones basic, like power fry sound, you can go a long time with that. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I only got 10 minutes here. But awesome job from Will Ramos again. Great vocals, great song, new backdrop, looks kind of cool. But again, if you enjoyed the content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot to me to see the community grow. If you want to join in on the community, check us out on Patreon. We've got a lot of cool events, and we've been growing pretty steadily. So we've got some new faces, a lot of cool people. We work really hard. We work really hard to make it a very safe and accepting and fun community. So you're not gonna run into any jerks, is what I'm trying to tell you. But anyway, if you're interested in lessons or learning how to make your metal vocals a little bit better, email me using the email address below. Beyond that, as always, many thanks, much love. I'm out.